Money is a tool that we use to invest in our health and our growth and our happiness. It also helps you keep tabs on the economy so you have something to talk about at dinner. The second money cheat code is to,
I feel like a lot of women are maybe pushed away from that table a little bit more.
we talk about standards that were set by men. Like, two examples that come to mind are the fact that depending on where you come from, debt can be the tool that takes you to the next level. I knew someone who once said that they put an order of 30 candles on buy now, pay later. And I was like, why? You already have the tools to become the person you want to be.
Today's guest is the big sis your bank account's been begging for. She's a certified credit counselor and senior writer at Bankrate, keeping her finger on the pulse of personal finance, travel, and home buying, aka all the things we should know before making impulsive decisions. Her work has been featured in Business Insider, USA Today, Fidelity Investments, Yahoo Finance, and more. So if you've ever Googled a money question at 2 a.m., chances are you've read her advice. Here to help us feel more confident, less overwhelmed, and way more empowered with our finances, Katie Kelton, welcome to Wellness Big Sis, the pod. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I feel like when it comes to 2026 and the new year and New Year's goals, a lot of girls have goals surrounding finances, whether it's saving up for a new house or a down payment or investing in their retirement accounts, or even more of the fun like TikTok, no spend or no buy trends where it's like, I am not going to buy this list of things in 2026. I think those are so fun. But because of all of that focus on finances, I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk a little bit about how we can grow stronger in our financial health. So what are some of the starting points or tips and tricks that we should all think about when it comes to growing stronger in our financial health in 2026?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I also agree that money is a tool for wellness, which I think these are related. And I also care about women gaining power and autonomy over their money. And so to me, money is a tool that we use to invest in our health and our growth and our happiness. But that said, it is good to be a steward of the money that you have, right? And so I'm a writer with Bankrate, and I've been thinking about money cheat codes. So essentially things that you can set up to work in your favor that don't require constant supervision or constant activity, but can still help you grow your money. The first cheat code, which everyone's going to say, like, I already know this, is to download a budgeting app, but actually use it, because a budget is the best tool you have in your pocket to know where your money's going. But I say an app because I'm surprised by how many people will still say, like, yeah, one time, I got a spreadsheet off the internet, or like I collect my receipts. And I'm like, you can do all of that automatically. Like, we don't need to be breaking out Excel anymore. The nice thing about a budgeting app is that it can automatically track and categorize your expenses for you. So all you have to do is make sure they're like put in the right place. And then you can go in and organize your income to make sure first you're paying off debt, you've hit your savings goals, you're paying your rent. And then you can start to move the other parts like groceries or clothes to make sure you're not spending more money than you're getting every month. And I kind of treat it like social media. Like, I like to check in and see, where am I on my clothing budget? Should I skip that run to the thrift store for the second half? I've already hit it. Basically, it's just a great way to keep tabs on your money. The second money cheat code is to set up an automatic transfer to savings. This helps you with that mindset of saving before you even really have access to that money. And you can do this directly within like your paycheck compensation system if you have that, or you can set up a transfer between accounts. But for example, I set up a $200 transfer to savings every month from my paycheck before I ever even get to look at it. So that's $400 already that I'm saving each month, just an easy hack to make sure you're hitting your goals. And then the third thing, speaking of savings, is that if you have money in the bank, I want you to let it grow and not just sit there. And you can do this with a high yield savings account is the best tool. This is such an important thing. If you don't know about this, is that most banks offer free high yield savings accounts. So if you have an emergency fund just sitting in your checking account, or you're saving up for your next trip and it's just in a blank, no yield earning savings account, open the new account, because you will earn between 3 and 5% yield. Like, I have a $12,000 emergency fund and I don't even add to it anymore. But every year it earns like $400, and that's just from sitting there. If you want to get into investing, like, I don't think we need to be day trading to make money. I think all you need to do is open a free investment account. I use Fidelity, but there are also apps. And if you have like an extra $200 sitting around, just put it in the account. It's a good way to grow, first of all. And then it also helps you keep tabs on the economy. So you have something to talk about at dinner. You can just say, like, hey, my investments are up or they're down. It's just a good way to like be in tune with the market.
Do you have any budgeting apps that you like to recommend to people?
Yeah, I pay $99 a year for Monarch, the app. It just works for me. I like how easy it is to categorize your expenses. And to me, the $99 is so worth it. But there are others out there too. It's more about you might want to test it out and give it a month to make sure like you're going to actually use it. That's the most important part.
I'll link that one below just since you mentioned it. I'm not a huge fan of MyFitnessPal, but I do feel like certain meal trackers or exercise trackers or fitness trackers, all of those sorts of things give us a nice, well-rounded picture of our health and wellness. And I think a budgeting app, I look at it the same way. I wish I was better at it. This is something that I actually need to improve on just to get an overall sense. You think you're eating healthy, getting enough water, exercising enough, but then all of a sudden you look at your fitness tracker and yeah, you're getting in that 60-minute workout a day, but maybe you're sitting behind your computer for the extra 9 hours, So you don't really notice that until you start tracking it. And I feel like the same thing could possibly be said about our overall financial picture and our budgeting. You're like, oh, I might be spending $200 a month on groceries or $200 a week if you're my family, which is crazy. But you might think that in your head, but then it's not until you start to track that you're like, oh, shoot, hang on. I am actually spending far more than what I thought. And it acts as this tracker just to see and actually objectively measure where you're putting things and where your money is going throughout the entire month or quarter of the year, however you're tracking it.
Such a good point. Yeah, it also lets you make sure you're spending with your values. Like, I don't really value this is crazy, I know, but I'm not a foodie. I don't really value going out and like eating food. I value thrifting. I value entertainment. And so if I realize like all my money is going towards these dinners I've like committed to, and I don't have any money left for the things I actually want to do, that makes me want to go out less. But I might not even know that if I weren't looking at it month to month. So
I think for me
yeah.
too, one of the recent things with all of my friends going through these big life milestones and me wanting to support them in certain ways, if they have, this is a recent experience that I'm reminded of right now, but a meal train postpartum where it's like, I would love to contribute to that. And I might feel a little guilty thinking, oh, that's my meal budget or whatever. But having that picture allows you to be like, oh, hang on, actually, I do have this extra that I can give to my friend and support her in this like time frame. So even when it comes to not just self-focused purchases or self-focused desires, but like you said, value-based spending, even if that is on, supporting one of your friends in her recent life change or whatever it is.
Totally. I love that. You can even have a gifts budget. I have a gifts
I
budget.
love that. I need to have one because it's those little things, little
Yeah.
daily, like I don't have a gifts budget, but I always think I'm like, oh, how much can I spend on this friend? Even if I mean, obviously I'd want to spend unlimited budget on my friends, but that might not be the healthiest when it comes to my own financial health, I guess. But it is one of those things that I want to start to be more aware of with my own finances of how much I can actually give to other people, not even just charitable donations to broad organizations, but these little things where it's like, oh, my friend had a hard day, I want to treat her to this, or, oh, this meal train postpartum, or a friend's family member passed away where I would love to be able to support them in that way. And I think having a better grasp on my overall financial health and a gifts budget or something like that would be very helpful for me. Totally. I also agree with your point of bringing more women to the table of financial talks. And I have noticed this hugely in my own life. The more that I have started to understand our financial picture, and luckily my husband is super gracious in teaching me these things, and my dad has taught me these things, but it's not until I have started to care more about it that I've realized it's actually hugely beneficial for us as women to have this understanding. And I feel like a lot of women are maybe pushed away from that table a little bit more. So I am also resonating with what you said about wanting women to understand finances a little bit better, which is why I'm grateful to have you on as a female talking about finances and giving us just a basic rundown and a basic starting point.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We talk about standards that were set by men. Like, two examples that come to mind are the fact that the AC temperature in an office is usually based on like an older man. And the second thing I'm thinking of is how seat belts were designed to work with a man. And in a lot of ways, I think that money guidance was also driven by men. I'm thinking specifically of like Dave Ramsey. And those mindsets are not necessarily the best, nor are they the ones that are most helpful for women. Women have different things we want to spend our money on. We're smarter at making certain decisions. For example, the idea that you shouldn't have any debt, in my mind, is an outdated way of thinking. Like, especially women, depending on where you come from, debt can be the tool that takes you to the next level. Not talking about credit card debt. I'm talking about like if you need debt to elevate your education levels or your wealth to start a business. Like those things benefit women. And I also don't prescribe to total deprivation. I think that it's good to want to treat yourself or add joy to your life or your friend's life, like you're saying. It's more about figuring out how that fits in your budget. So, anyway, I think there is a take on money that women can have that's much more helpful to our finances.
Speaking of sort of that like shift from this male dominated thought process behind finances to more of things that women care about when it comes to finances, I like to think of my financial health of things that I can add and then more of like a closet clean out. So this is only me that is thinking about this, but are there certain mindsets or money habits that we should closet clean out in 2026 and sort of shed in this new year?
Yes. I like this idea too because it's not about doing more, adding this thing to your list. It's more about just slightly tweaking your habits. One of the things I write about a lot at Bankrate, and probably because I'm so guilty of it, is impulse shopping. You're scrolling on social media, you see this really cute set that an influencer's wearing, and you just need it right then. Or I thrift a lot, and it's really easy to have the impulse mindset when you're thrifting because you think, like, if I don't get it today, it's going to be gone. But if you do that for a $50 vintage jacket every month, like, okay, now you don't need another jacket. Like, there will always be more. Two ways that I prevent this are the wait 24 hours rule, which is like, I can always go back tomorrow if I really want it. It will still be on Etsy in 24 hours. That lets you look at your budget, look at your closet, make sure it's like actually a good choice. And this could include a trip or an experience too, by the way. This isn't just like a piece of clothing. And then also to create friction between that purchase. And so what I mean is like, it's not as easy as just having your credit card information saved on TikTok shop and you're like, perfect, add to cart, mail. Or like the Amazon app. Oh my gosh, I had to delete the Amazon app from my phone because it was getting too easy to just order off of some, I don't even feel like going to the store. I just need more shampoo. But then I was just wasting money and wasting cardboard and shipping. And so I deleted the app off my phone. But creating friction between your wants and that purchase. But like I was saying, I'm not a huge fan of total deprivation. So it's okay to want things. That's when that budgeting app comes into play. Look at how much money you have, how much is left for that month. And instead of shopping impulsively, you can shop strategically. Another habit that I think we could stand to break is carrying a balance on our credit cards. This I thought was kind of something everyone prescribed to because I was taught this from an early age, like always pay off your balances. But in speaking with people at work and in personal life, I have realized this isn't necessarily a universal idea. People will put vacations or lifestyle purchases on a credit card and use it as a way to pay it off over time. But credit card interest is one of the most expensive forms of debt. It's like 19% right now, which is actually a little lower than it's been, but the highest cards can have a 30% rate. And the thing about credit card interest is that it compounds. So if you pay a little bit in interest today, tomorrow you're going to pay a little bit more on top of your interest. It's just a dangerous game to play. So paying off your balance in full, if you can, should always be like number one priority when it comes to looking at your money at the end of the month. And then a third habit I think that we could stand to break is letting money drive your emotions. And I say this one with all the love and grace because I used to have a lot of money anxiety. Like when I would check my money at the end of the month and say I spent a little too much or I didn't have enough left to save, I felt like weird guilt and anxiety when really money is a lifelong practice. It takes time to be good at it. But if you're feeling fearful or anxious about it, you might be more inclined to impulse shop because you're like, I'll never get the hang of it. Let me just buy this thing to make myself feel better. Or sometimes like loneliness can drive purchases. And I would say overall, the more that you can separate your emotions from money this year and just approach it very rationally, like as a tool, nothing more, nothing less. It's not a reflection of your character. That will help you just have more peace around money and make better decisions with it.
I was talking with a habit coach yesterday, and she's a professional behavior scientist. She studies behavior for a living, and especially how habits are influenced by our behavior and changed by our behavior. And she was saying that she actually doesn't even like looking at habits as good or bad, more as productive and unproductive, and that we sometimes develop these unproductive habits like impulse buying or impulse shopping or filling that need with a material item due to a certain void. And I've noticed that within myself over the past few years, probably, is that anytime I notice a void in my life, whether it is stress, honestly, if we're being for real, it's usually stress, or where I feel like maybe I'm not as far up professionally or personally or whatever that I want to be, that's when I will revert to those impulse shopping behaviors. But it took a long time for me to realize that, and I'm not perfect either. Material items or material things is something that I revert to constantly. So I've realized that within my own life, just knowing that, okay, what is the mental state that I'm in? And like you said, I think I need to be better about creating that friction, creating that barrier between me and that purchase, giving me time to, I guess, reflect on what void is that filling within my life.
I think that a lot of purchases too, like this is marketing 101, is that they're aspirational. Like you see an outfit or you see this like trip experience or a concert and you're like, I want to be the kind of person who wears that outfit or who goes to that concert. Or even with like, now with GLP-1s and things like that, those are expensive, but I want to be the kind of person who looks like that. And I think that instead, I've been trying to teach myself to reframe how I see myself and also using the things that I already have. Like, and this could be as little as like looking on Pinterest and looking for outfits that use clothes that are already in your closet. Like now you're the kind of person who wears that outfit. You already have a white tee, a jacket, and track pants. Like you can do this. Or, a trip. I reframe by thinking about the trips I already have lined up or the trips I'm dreaming of that maybe they're a year or two in advance, but the savings I have now will get me there in the future. Like in some ways, you're already the person, you already have the tools to become the person you want to be. Like that impulse purchase isn't going to get you closer to that person.
I also think the more impulse purchasing that I do, the more I feel like it controls me. And so that's this sort of cycle that I find myself sometimes getting into. And I'm not a fan of complete deprivation, but I have found benefit with fasting from personal spending on myself for things that I don't need. I'll do it sometimes during Lent coming up, I guess, where I don't spend on clothes because I am a clothes spender. I enjoy, finding new clothes and wearing them in style and all of this. But if I see something I like and I buy it, that kind of promotes the next behavior that's similar to that for me in my own mindset. And so I've realized that sometimes when I do a temporary spending fast from that impulse buying, especially, or from just material item buying in general, I get this sense of freedom that I actually have the control to make that decision. And the fact that it's giving me back that freedom and that control, even though it seems like deprivation a little bit from the outside, is a little counterintuitive, but I've noticed that has really helped me to be like, no, I do not have to buy that in order to become this person that I want to be. It's this taking back of control by controlling some of those thoughts that enter my head anytime I do want to make that material purchase or buy that plane ticket to another destination.
I love that. A fast also eliminates the paradox of choice when you're like, should I buy this thing or this thing? Or do I have money left for this thing? And if you just say, I'm not doing that right now, you're right in that it frees up a huge chunk of your brain from just having to make one more decision. And then you can make all your other decisions better. That's a great idea. I should try that.
It's been fun, honestly. And I think it's part of the individuality of finances in general is that this does benefit me, but it might not benefit someone else because, like you said, that deprivation,
Sure.
some people, I can come at it from an exercise or dietetic standpoint where it's depriving yourself. And then all of a sudden, after that 75 hard challenge or that extreme dieting behavior, you binge on the other end. So I feel like that's a cycle to not get into when it comes to finances as well. But for me, it has been very, very helpful. I'm curious, you mentioned not carrying a balance on your credit card as another thing that we should shed in 2026. What are your thoughts on the buy now, pay later or afterpay, not even trend, but I guess, business that has come about, especially I feel like targeting women.
I'm so glad you asked. I think that buy now, pay later at its core, like I'm in the finance space and a lot of financiers, advisors will say that it's like the devil. Don't do it. It's debt. You're robbing future you to pay for current you's needs. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think in some ways, buy now, pay later is better than carrying a balance on your card because it's usually very low interest or no interest. But I think that it is a dangerous game to play if you are financing, like you mentioned, targeted towards women. If you're financing sort of small luxury goods like makeup or candles, I knew someone who once said that they put an order of 30 candles on buy now, pay later. And I was like, why? Why don't you just buy one at a time? You're not gonna use them all. Anyway, I think that my rule of thumb with buy now, pay later, because I'm not anti buy now, pay later. I have used it before. One thing I use it for is my ski pass. The reason is that it's extremely expensive in my mind, and I can break it out into 3 purchases, and I do get it 0 interest. And so in that sense, I'm extending my cash flow. My money is actually earning more by sitting in an account than it is if I paid it all right away. I'm earning more by spreading it out. And I also benefit from the past long after I've paid it off. So, ski season's like 6 months long almost if you really try. And I will have already paid it off by then. It's the purchases like DoorDash that you consume immediately and then you'll still be paying off later that I wouldn't recommend doing.
But it's putting that extra thought process into it before we actually follow through with a buy now, pay later order or an afterpay order or something like that.
Yeah, and I honestly just think it's worth asking if you're checking out and you're considering it on buy now, pay later, because they give you that option now. Do you have the money to pay for it now? And if you don't, should you be buying it at all?
Totally. Yeah. Just that extra little thought process. Because I've been listening to podcasts and different things and talking about the buy now, pay later business in general. And then I see it when I'm checking out about to buy, a top or jeans. And I'm like, I wonder how many people are actually using this. So I was just curious, even on your take, because it did seem as a female who makes typically like female purchases of, clothes and makeup and skincare and things that I enjoy. I see it on that and I'm like, are people using it for these $20 or $30 purchases or these 30 candles? So I like that
Mhm.
you said a favorable use for it, I guess, too, where you're like, my ski pass makes sense for me to use it on there with the 0% interest too.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And I'm going to go into mom mode for a second. I'm not a mom, but buy now, pay later historically hasn't affected your credit report. Whereas obviously, if you make a late payment on your credit card, that hurts your credit. But now, in a nutshell, it is now. If it's not yet, it will in the future. So using it responsibly could start to make or break your credit score, which, as strong, empowered women, we want to have good credit. So don't think of it as something you can just like forget about and not pay because it does matter.
Can you define, and just briefly for, because I hate the jargon that's used in, bro finance world, for people who might not understand interest, who might just be like very, very new and understanding credit cards. I know I was very, very new at one point in time. I didn't understand what interest was. I didn't understand what a credit score was. Can you just go over those briefly on why we should be concerned about them and what they actually mean?
Interest in a nutshell is to protect the lender if you don't pay them back, right? They charge a little bit more on top. But the reason it's dangerous, especially with a credit card, is that it compounds. And so if you have an APR of 30%, that's annual percentage rate, then you're getting charged a little bit in interest every day on your balance. And then the next day, you're getting charged interest on top of the principal plus interest. So that's why it snowballs so quickly. It can also work in your favor. It's worth saying this is why having a 401k is so important because compound interest. There are calculators out there that can show you the incredible amount of money you can earn on a relatively low principal just by accruing compound interest over time. But the same is true for a credit card, and that's the money that you end up owing.
And then credit score, why is that a concern? How does that affect different things long term with our financial health?
A credit score is essentially a score that lenders look at when they're considering whether or not to loan money to you. It's a measure of your creditworthiness, and it's based on things like your payment history. Have you ever paid late or do you pay on time? It's also based on your credit mix. and your length of credit. There's a lot of factors that go into your credit score. But in general, if you've used credit for a while and you have multiple forms of credit, you'll end up probably with a good credit score. And this matters because your credit score affects your approval rate for credit cards, especially the best ones that can give you really good rewards on what you pay. It also can affect your ability to get approved for a car loan, a mortgage, and the important part is that it affects your interest rate on those loans. And so you'll end up paying more in the long run if you have a poor credit score, just in interest. So, in general, you really want to aim to have good credit as much as you can. And the way that you use the credit you currently have directly affects your score.
So, speaking of those big purchases, for people and girls who have goals of, like I said earlier, saving enough for a down payment on a house or investing more into their retirement accounts, or maybe funding a wedding or a honeymoon, or basically bigger life purchases, do you have any tips and tricks for people who are saving up for those bigger purchases or looking towards those bigger purchases either in 2026 or 2027?
I mean, I would start by making sure you know what those goals are, writing them down because everyone's are different. Like I was thinking about the differences between you and me. I was thinking how like you and I have been friends since first grade. We're the same age, but you have been married for how long have you been
Six
married?
and a half. It'll be 7 in May. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So going on 7 years, you had a wedding almost 7 years ago. You own a home, you own a business, you travel internationally a lot. Whereas like I'll be getting married this year and I'll be 31. I don't own a home. I tend to travel a lot in state. You and I are on slightly different paths. And so it's important to know where you're headed and not feel pressure to like buy a home in 1 year, get married in 2 years, have kids in 3 years. Like everyone's different. But if you do know where you're headed, one of my favorite tips is to open a savings account that's directly correlated to that goal. And you can have as many savings accounts as you want. And you can also have them either as a high yield savings account with your bank, or you could even set up like an investment account with an investor or investment platform, as long as you don't need the money right away, because it's a little less liquid if it's invested, right? And then you can watch that money grow, whether you want to set up an automatic transfer, however much you're hoping to put in each month towards that account that you've set aside, or you can do it manually, just depending where your budget landed at the end of the month. But as you watch your house fund or your Italy money grow over time, it's so empowering to want to continue to save for that. Because sometimes I've noticed people will have like, they'll say, I'm saving up for a trip. And I'm like, where's your money for that trip? And they're like, oh, it's in my savings account. And I'm like, you mean the savings account that you also pay for car repairs for, it's not a great way to track your success. And so I would recommend setting up different accounts. And then also going back to the budget, be really proactive about like how much money are you going to need for that thing? Let's say you're getting married in a year. So you might want, I mean, I'm hoping for 15,000. Some people it's like 50,000. Okay. So then do the math and figure out like how much do I need to be setting aside each month for this? How much do I have that's given to me as a gift? Like do the math. And then once you know how much you need to set aside each month or allocate, set up that automatic allocation again. So you don't accidentally spend it on something that's just like not worth it. You want it for your wedding.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing with us all these sort of financial tips, tricks, money habits that we can all implement in the new year. I know I learned a lot from you. I like that it is female focused because, like you said, there's a whole different side and mindset shift that happens when you talk about money and spending and investing and finances for women. And I think there's a big disconnect in the language that's sometimes used with the financial world in general between men and women, and maybe this barrier to entry that I know I have felt as a woman trying to learn more about her own financial health and wellness. So I appreciate you coming on and breaking that all down for us today.
Of course. Thank you. I would also love to say I'm always just a DM or an email away. Like I love talking to people about money. It's even part of my job. So if you want to like vent or have a question, any of your listeners, like let's connect.
I'll leave all of those links below, in addition to all of the links, the Monarch budgeting app that she uses, and just her links in general. If you're curious, she writes amazing content on finances. So if you're ever curious about a certain topic, you can look into some of the writing that she has done in the past. And I think that'll set people on a very, very good starting point on questions to even ask you. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You learned a lot, and I'll see you guys again on the next episode of Wellness Big Sis the Pod.